Welcome to the May edition of the Hornet Spotlight, and we want to remind you that, of course, May means that we're getting close to the end of the school year, and June 2nd, 10 a.m., the class of 2012 will go through their commencement exercises, and I know there are 150 students who are looking very forward to that, and probably even more parents and relatives and friends. So make sure you mark June 2nd on your calendar. That is commencement. Baccalaureate will be held on Thursday night, May 31st in the auditorium. I believe the time for that is 7 p.m. Two big graduation exercises that take place, and we hope everyone will come and enjoy the celebration of the class of 2012. They have had a very good year, as we all have. We're very happy with the early returns on our standardized testing from the state. I know in the elementary schools they've got theirs back and they're very happy. So it's been a good year academically for the Beech Grove City schools. Also, as we wind down in May, besides commencement, besides baccalaureate, we also have a couple big deals going on with athletics. We just found out as the taping today that we have had about three teams and individuals in boys track qualify for the regional. We had one or two girls teams and individuals qualify Tuesday night. So the track team under Coach Osborne completing a good spring with the individuals and teams qualifying for the next round of the tournament series there. We will be hosting the girls softball tournament next week as we tape right now. The Hornets are scheduled to play on Tuesday. They'll be playing Tri-West. Again, just like it was in volleyball and boys and girls basketball, it is a new tournament, new teams, a lot of Hendricks County flavor now, not quite so much Marion County. But it should be some very good competitive softball here at Beech Grove High School. I believe we're playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday or Saturday, depending on who it is, because of graduation and those types of things. So a really good week hosting softball that week. Our baseball team will open the boys sectional tournament series at Danville. I believe we're playing the host Warriors. I think that game is a Wednesday night game, I believe 6 o'clock. Don't quote me on the time. Check our website for all the information on the ball and bat sports as we wind down the sports season as well. We had a very, very nice academic awards program earlier this week in which over 150 students were recognized for their academic performance during the school year. Anything from choral performances to visual arts, perfect attendance, anything that the teachers felt like should be recognized was recognized. We recognized a good group of seniors. Again, we're speaking about the class of 2012 for their academic performance. This next week, in spite of the softball, baseball, and everything else going on, we will recognize a lot of students at the Triple H program on Wednesday, and also that will be the athletic awards night, something else you can look forward to, and as we celebrate the end of the school year with our students. Today, we are going to make our 9th and final induction into the Alumni Hall of Fame, and today we are going to induct a member of the class of 1985. And this is one we did not have to go very far to find. Actually, we just walked down the hall, and Mrs. Beth Wolfe, a 9th grade teacher, teaches a lot of different things. Whatever, I think if we asked her to teach underwater basket weaving, she could do it because she is just a teacher. Specializes in algebra and English with the freshmen, but just a fantastic instructor. We use her in the summer school for a lot of different things, and it is, as I think I've said 2 or 3 times this year, it's long overdue, but it is our pleasure to introduce Miss Beth Wolfe as the Alumnus of the Month from the class of 1985. We tell her all the time how much we appreciate her, but today we get to recognize her as an alumnus. So, congratulations, Beth.
Thank you.
And thanks for making the long trek down the hallway to be here today. Probably one of the shortest trips we've had. 1985, you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're a long-time Grover, lifelong Grover.
Grew up in Beech Grove.
Grew up in Beech
Born
Grove.
in Beech Grove.
What was going on mid-'80s? What was the hot spot? What was the thing to do here at school? What did the school look like?
Well, after Friday night football games, we would go to Noble Romans. That was the hot place on Friday night after football games. The Fishbowl, where the Fishbowl Computer Lab is now, was the main office. So the building looks a lot different. A lot of the classrooms are pretty much the same, but the courtyard area is a little different than it was back then. So a lot of things structurally have changed.
Do you remember some of the classrooms from your time here?
I do. In fact, the classroom that I'm teaching in now is where I learned to type. It's where I learned my typing skills from Mr. Fairchild.
You mentioned Mr. Fairchild, you mentioned your typing class. Is there any other classes, teachers, activities that really stuck with you as you
Well, I was a member of
back?
the Beech Grove High School marching band, and we did pretty well in high school in the marching band. Took a lot of time, a lot of Saturdays and Friday night ball games. And I was also, as a freshman, I was on the swimming and diving team. And then I did track 1 year and student council, a lot of the academic type things.
So you graduated in 85. At that point in time, did you know career-wise what you were looking at, what you wanted to do at that point, or were you still kind of unsure?
At that point, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to teach. And so I knew that I wanted to go to the University of Indianapolis, which back then wasn't UND. It was Indiana Central University on Hannah. And so I knew I wanted to go to school there. I originally thought that I wanted to teach high school math. And at the end of my first semester, I changed my mind and decided that I really wanted to teach middle school kids. And so the route to go to teach middle school at that time was my license is elementary. So I'm certified to teach 1st through 6th grade and then 7th, 8th, and 9th English and math. And so I changed my major at the end of my first semester and decided to pursue that pathway.
What kind of made you to go toward the middle school route? Because a lot of people want to do elementary, they want to do high school. The middle school kids are kind of the left out stepchildren sometimes.
They really are, but I love middle school kids. Probably my dad was my principal. So when I was in the middle school in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, my father was the principal of the building, and he really liked middle school kids. And so I thought, I think maybe I want to follow in my dad's footsteps. And so, that's kind of why I decided I think I want to try the middle school thing.
Okay, you graduated, 89? Would that
Graduated
be right?
in 1989.
Class, I should look at your diploma in the case there. Graduated from Indiana Central in 89 and got your first job where?
My first job was, actually my first contract was at Newcastle High School, teaching 9th grade. And there were not many jobs that year. And I was certified in elementary, middle school. I did a student teaching in math, middle school math, and I student taught 5th grade. I never did any student teaching in English at all. But I was certified in English, and there just happened to be really the only jobs available were English positions. And so I took a job at Newcastle. I signed the contract, got my books, got my classroom, and then a week later I was offered a contract at Fulton Junior High in Wayne Township, and it was closer to home, and so I reneged on my Newcastle High School and decided that I wanted to go to Fulton. Newcastle was just so far out, and there were no malls, no shopping nearby, and so I let the second person in that didn't get the job take the job at Newcastle, and then I started teaching at Fulton Junior High that fall.
And you stayed at Fulton for how long?
I was at Fulton for 10 years, and I taught everything from 9th grade geometry. I had general math, I had business math, I had an Algebra 2 class, and I had 8th grade English, and I think I had one 9th grade. I taught pretty much whatever they needed me. My schedule changed every year, and for the first 2 years I was a traveling teacher. I had no classroom, I was on a cart. And so I pushed my supplies from classroom to classroom. And I think that's really how I learned to be very organized. You have to be organized if you're going to be teaching in different classrooms, and all of your things have to fit on a cart. So when in doubt, pitch it out is kind of when I began the philosophy of, tossing things I didn't need because everything had to fit on that cart. And I used an elevator. We had an elevator that I would go up and down, the floors. So
10 years at Fulton,
10 years at Fulton.
and from there?
Well, from there, there was a position at Beech Grove Middle School that was a split schedule. They needed to hire somebody who was certified in math and English at the middle school. And there were very few people that were certified to teach math and English. It's a weird combination. And so my dad said, there's a math, and they need a math and English person at the middle school. And I said, oh no, I don't want to go there. I love Fulton. It's a great place. I really don't want to move. And he said, well, we can't find anybody else to do this. Well, they did have one other person that interviewed, and he said he could tolerate middle school kids, but he really wasn't crazy about them. So he said, we really need somebody who wants to do this. And I said, well, I love all my friends and my colleagues at Fulton. I really don't want to leave. And he said, well, why don't you just go for the interview? Just go talk to Mr. Merle and just see what you think. And I said, well, all right, So I went kind of reluctantly because I was perfectly happy at Fulton. And after talking to Mr. Merle and walking through the building, I decided, well, maybe this would be a good fit. And my daughter, Katie, my oldest daughter, was going to be in first grade attending Beech Grove. And so, of course, my dad tried to convince me that, that would be nice for, you to be in the same district and the same schedule. So I caved and went to the middle school then, and I was there for 8 years at Beech Grove Middle School, teaching algebra, pre-algebra, and English. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. No, 7th and 8th, just 7th and 8th while I was there.
And then you came to Beech. I think you came to the high school when we initiated the house concept, right? Or were you here before
I was
that?
I was a little after you initiated the house concept. So this is ending my 5th year here.
5th year.
So 10, 8, and 5, so 23 years.
23 years to
23
business.
years, yeah. And one of the reasons that I came to the high school is that, Dr. Sager had asked me the year prior to come to the high school because somebody was retiring and they needed somebody that had some experience to head the English department. And I just said, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I'm happy at the middle school. And he said, well, think about it. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I didn't that year. And then the following spring, he called me again and said, will you reconsider? We know that your oldest daughter is now going to the high school and she'll be a freshman. Wouldn't that be nice to be in the same building? I said, well, yes, but my youngest daughter, Molly, is heading to the middle school, and I would like to have her in class, So they also needed someone to help out with the cheer program. And so I decided at that time I would go ahead and move to the high school and help out with cheerleading and be the English department chair. So it's kind of how that all happened.
So every move you made, you've been a little reluctant to make
I have, because I really have been happy everywhere that I've been. So yeah, trying to get me to move somewhere else is, I don't know. If you're happy where you are, you just want to be there.
That's a lot to be said for that. You mentioned, and probably something we will want to talk about a little bit is, you mentioned that the math and the English are kind of odd combinations. How did you arrive at that combination? Well,
I decided I didn't want to teach math because I had taken, just to get a math endorsement, it required me to take Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, numerical methods, differential equations. And it got to the point where I felt like, these are tough. I was struggling to pull out a C, which was the prerequisite for the next class. And I thought, I'm not sure I really want to do this. And the class sizes at UND, back then Indiana Central, but it became in University of Indianapolis in 86, I believe, my sophomore year. I thought, I'm not really sure that I want to do this. Do I really need to take 4 or 5 years of calculus to be able to teach middle school math? I'm not really sure that's what I want to do. And so in the elementary program at UND, you have to take so many English courses just to be certified to teach elementary that the English was automatic. I didn't have to take any additional English courses. And like I said before, I never had to do student teaching in English. It was just on my license. I never intended to really teach English. My intention was to teach middle school math, but there were no math jobs. And so there were several interviews I went on, and they said, what's your real love? And I said, I'll be honest with you, I really love to teach math, but there just aren't any math jobs. And I didn't student teach in English, but you give me books and kids and I'll teach them. Tell me what it is you want them to know, and I can do it. So I was a little nervous my first year teaching English when I had never done any student teaching in English at all. And I really didn't have to take any additional English classes because I had the middle school methods courses, which I had a lot of extra math to be able to teach just through the 9th grade, but no extra English courses at all. So a lot of what I learned on my own, out of necessity.
I think you've mentioned them all, at least at some point in our conversation, but talk to us a little bit. I know your dad very well. Actually, your dad is the guy that interviewed me from the central office when I came here, so I know him well. He drives a hard bargain, too.
Yeah.
Was he always that way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, doesn't take no for an answer. Yes.
But tell us a little bit about your family, what they're doing, who they are, where they're at.
Okay, well, my husband, Ross, we've been married 20 years. This summer will be 21 years. And he teaches in Hamilton Southeastern at Riverside Intermediate, so it's in Fishers. And he has been in Hamilton Southeastern since we got married in 91. And kind of a funny story with Ross, he was teaching at an elementary school. He's an elementary teacher. He currently teaches 6th grade, but when we were engaged, he was teaching 5th grade in Beaver Creek, Ohio. And so we had to make the decision. I had a job here. He had a job in, Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is close to Dayton. And, where do I go? And so he actually got the job in Hamilton Southeastern 2 days before we got married. And so July 18th, before we got married, July 20th, he got the job offer. So it made the wedding and the honeymoon a whole lot better, knowing that he was actually going to have a job to come back to. And so he's been in Hamilton Southeastern, since 1991 when we got married. And then my mom was the assistant director at Beech House Child Development Center. And so that really worked out well with our children because Katie and Molly, both went to daycare from the time they were 8 weeks old. And, they were there with their grandmother, so that was really a good thing. My dad, of course, was the assistant superintendent. And then prior to that, I said he was my middle school principal. Kind of an interesting thing about him is that although one of his main jobs was hiring people, he himself never interviewed for a position. All of the positions that he ever had, someone called him up and said, would you like to do this? Would you like to be this? And so I always thought that was kind of ironic that his job of interviewing people, he never really knew what it was like to be interviewed. And then I've got 2 daughters. Katie is a freshman at UND, majoring in secondary English education, so she's decided that she wants to be a high school English teacher. And then my youngest daughter, Molly, she's a sophomore here at Beech Grove High School, and I think she also wants to go into education, but she's going to follow in her dad's footsteps because she wants to be an elementary teacher. So, and they both are just great kids, great students, and they love one another, and they don't fight. And I mean, so that's just really, we've really been blessed with 2 great kids. My sister teaches at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, and her husband is an elementary teacher. And then my niece and nephew, Jonathan and Diana, their children are both going into education. And then I have my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Brother-in-law is into education, teaches some classes at University of Dayton, and they have 3 children. And so really it's, I guess education runs in the family. My grandmother taught in a 1-room schoolhouse, so she was a teacher. And then Ross's mom has a degree in education, and then his grandmother also was a teacher. So it's definitely,
So there's some war stories told during the holidays.
There are. Oh, yeah, there are. We talk about our favorite students and some that are not so favorite, perhaps. But, yeah. So we trade stories.
Always one-up kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of students, you started 1989-90 school year, right?
Right,
That was your first year.
Right, 1989.
You've been at it for a good while, long enough to see a difference, if there is one. What's your perception of the difference of public education now as compared to when you first started? I know you look at things differently, obviously, with your experience, but still, I know I get the question all the time, what's the difference between kids, kids nowadays, they're so much different than the others. How do you see that?
I really don't. I really don't think, we always like to say that, kids these days, they're just like we were. There's really not that much difference in kids. Kids are kids. We did stupid things when we were teenagers, but we just like to forget about them. And kids these days do stupid things, and we say, oh, well, we would never have done that. Yes, we would have. Kids are just kids. But I do think education has changed, because I do think kids are held to higher standards. And I always tell my students the story that your diploma means something, because it was hard to get. My diploma in 1985, the kid sitting next to me couldn't read. And he got the exact same diploma I did. And so I think their diploma these days means a lot more. They had to work harder. They had to pass tests. They had to prove competency. And so to get a high school diploma these days is much more difficult, because the classes are more rigorous, and there's just a lot more requirements. And so I think it means more, and I think we're putting out, kids that can handle the workforce, even that goes straight to the workforce and don't go to college, because their diploma is something really to be proud of. Not that ours wasn't, but I don't think ours was nearly as difficult to get. I think, there might have been some diplomas given, and I know that nowadays the diplomas are earned, definitely earned.
And the product's better for the colleges too.
Definitely. But I think as far as kids and behaviors, they really haven't changed. Kids are kids, and they always have been.
Yeah, I'm going back a little farther than you, but I remember all the hubbub about the Beatles and the Beatle boots and the long hair and all. It's all relative. I thought you stated that very well. Kids are kids, and they're going to do what kids do. They just will.
And we just choose as adults to forget that we did stupid things, and that we bullied other kids, and that we did things that we shouldn't have done. And of course now the social media is is a big problem that we have. But I'm sure that we created our own problems.
It just was. It was the local barber shop or the
five
and dime. It just wasn't.
I'm not sure that their verbal skills are going to be as good because of all the texting and everything they do. But they're definitely finding ways to communicate, even if it's not verbal.
Well, Mrs. Wolfe, we thank you very much, and we'd like to give you this token of appreciation.
Thank
you for giving up your prep period today to come down here.
Thank you.
We have been with Mrs. Beth Wolfe, our alumnus of the month of the class of 1985. When you come in for baccalaureate, commencement, if you're coming in for whatever thing, make sure you check out the front case. There's a lot of stuff in there. Ms. Wolfe gave me 2 or 3 different pictures, so we see different phases of Ms. Wolfe's development there. But make sure you stop by the case. We purposely save our if we have an educator, we save them for May, because we know everyone's in for graduation, and with commencement and everything, it is nice to understand that we place a high priority on our educators here at Beech Grove High School. Not only do we put a high priority on our kids, we feel like that we put a high priority on our instructors as well. And most people can say that better than I can. But again, thank you, Mrs. Wolfe. Great way to end the school year. Again, next year they've already been selected. It's just a matter of contacting our next 9 Hall of Famers. We have I will just say a little bit science-y next year. I think 7 or 8 of the 9 are scientists in some way, shape, or form. So we're looking forward to having a good conversation with 9 individuals next year as we pick up the Hornet Spotlight. As we have, remember, we're going to have a very abbreviated summer this year because we're going to the blended calendar. So we'll be back a little earlier next year with the Hornet Spotlight in September. We look forward to seeing you then, and thank you for watching.